Hello there. What is going on, everybody? Today I'm going to be building a fleet for you guys. If you guys have seen like recent social media or shorts or whatever, I posted this of basically a little teaser of a fleet that I've been working on. I'm going to share it with you today as I've had a lot of people reach out to me and ask me, how did you fit all that into a 400-point list? And I want to talk about it. I'm going to talk about why I built it the way I did and how it's supposed to work. And patrons should have early access to seeing how it does. So if you're a patron on Patreon at the A-Wing level or above, you get early access to battle reports and things like that. So, that's one of the perks for being that. Plus, there's credits at the end of the videos and occasional extra giveaways and other perks for being patrons. So, the big, it's just a little shout out to its Patreon and all those folks who help keep this channel going. So if you guys are new here to the channel, I'd love for you to stick around, click the like and subscribe button. Also, links in our description below for Discord, Twitter, Facebook, all that other good stuff. I'd love for you to check all that stuff out. And if you are a player of Star Wars Armada, you should definitely head over to Crabbok.com and check out that free Armada AI, which is a system that allows you to play Armada against yourself or against an AI and test out some builds, like you could test out a build kind of like this. All right, so with that said, let's go ahead and jump into the, turn myself off there for a second. Let's go ahead and jump into this builder. I'm going to be using Ryan Kingston's fleet builder today, and we're going to put this builds together. So you saw a lot of ships. One of the things that I wanted to do was have something that would be visually appealing, but also have high activation count and be able to defeat certain things like Anakin Skywalker, which is kind of the bane of Armada's entire existence right now. Is so incredibly devastating that it's kind of turned every single build into a build that has to be able to counter Anakin Skywalker, and it's been like the single biggest blow to Armada, I think, that I can recall, outside of like the whole after wave 2, and everybody thought it was a long time before we had to wait for another wave or something like that. So really kind of hate what Anakin Skywalker has done to this game, but here's a list that, while I think it would work, maybe it'd probably still lose against him, it would still have, I had some success with the Akbar Nebulons build that I did before, and I actually almost tabled an Anakin Skywalker build because of it had so much firepower, and I like having a lot of firepower from a lot of different sources, because it allows that double salvo or that really heavy all-in Anakin Skywalker attack to really not mean much, especially with Architons, which I love to use. We are going to use a couple of Architons today. And so, let's start off with the Architons first. I do absolutely love this ship. It's an amazing ship. It's got 2 shields all around. It's got 2 redirects also, so it can really take advantage of those shields. Has 5 hull, which means it's usually not one-shotted, especially with evade being stronger than it ever was before 1.5 at least, and then contain if you need to. I find that in an Anakin Skywalker meta, most Imperialists have Emperor Palpatine, and so I'm also going to have to go up against other things that are spending defense tokens. And so, like, I don't mind having to spend that contain or one of the extra redirects. So having 4 defense tokens on this thing is really, really nice, and really helps its survivability. Now I'm going with the light cruiser variant, not necessarily going with the command cruiser, although the command cruiser is really cool, not just for taking engine techs, but also for potentially taking the engineering team that's going to give it the extra shield on the sides. Works really, really well with a ship with that many redirects. It's pretty cool, although you're certainly paying extra for it. It's very cool. So with the Architons, I am going slim on the upgrades today. I'm going to give it the quad battery turrets. One of my favorite turbo lasers. It's definitely a situational upgrade. It's going to give you an extra blue die if they are going faster than you. And I love it because if they're not going faster than you, then you're usually in a good position. In order to beat multiple Architons, typically your opponent has to outmaneuver you and outflank you, and that usually involves going faster. And so if you're not firing these, you're probably already in a position of power. If you need to fire these, which means your opponent's getting ready to outflank you, you can get an extra blue die on both shots. A lot of times when they're trying to get around you, you can end up with a double shot. And that's also really, really good. And then, of course, I always try to double arc with my Architans, but it's rare for that to happen all the time, but I always try to make it happen. It's just a great upgrade, and for 5 points, but the potential of 2 extra dice is incredible. Plus, the blue might have that accuracy that you really need. I've got plenty of red already on the Architans, and I've got potential black on here, so it's also a color that I didn't have access to before, which is also really good if I have Concentrate Fire dialed in, because if I really need that blue, sometimes I need that more than a red. All in all, I think it's a great upgrade for the Architans, because they, I like to take them kind of, I like to slow them down once I get them in the right spot. Now I'm going to run 3 of these. You saw 3 in the picture. I will have 3 Architans in the build, and I'm just going to hit the little duplicate button right over here, and that will duplicate one of these. And then, and that's, the trick is that this is the build, right? This is my main firepower. And it's only 177 points. We have a lot of points left over. Now, we did see an Imperial Star Destroyer. I'm going to put an Imperial Star Destroyer. It's going to be light on upgrades. Very light on upgrades. I'm going to go with the Simoon in this case. I was tempted to go with an Imperial 1. Also, a little bit tempted with the Kuat. I mean, they're cheaper. I don't want to do an ISD 2 because I feel like an ISD 2's greatest strength is the upgrades that it can take. And it works so well with like a salvo build or with that defensive retrofit, really taking advantage of the defensive retrofit. The ISD-1 and the Kuat both do better at close range, but I'm not going to have any upgrades on this really. So the Simoon works through process of elimination, but also because of the fact that it works well at long range. And since I'm not going to have much on there, especially nothing defensively, it'll fit into the theme of lots of red dice, working out well for this build. Now I'm going to make this my flagship. It does, even though it doesn't have defensive retrofit and I'm not putting much to help on it, it's still got lots of shields and lots of hull and a lot of dice just about everywhere. So it can do a good job with all of that. I'm going to make Romodi my commander in this build. This is a really good thing for multiple reasons. For one, he's cheap. He's 20 points. I'm trying to fit 6 activations in this list, including an ISD, so points are at a premium here. Romodi is going to get the job done. What I love about having Romodi on here too is that I've got so many ships. I'm going to be overlapping myself. I'm going to be, getting in my own way, and that's a beautiful thing. That's exactly what Romodi wants. Another thing that's going to help him get in his own way is a Gozanti. We're going to add a Gozanti to this list, and as you saw in the picture, no upgrades on the Gozanti. Not running any upgrades on it at all. This is obviously something that you can consider changing if you want. One thing you could do is you could just drop a quad battery turret, free up a couple of extra points, maybe put a comms net on the Gozanti, maybe put something on the ISD, an officer or something like that. There's a lot of little options that you could do here to do that. That's fine. You're free to do that, but I figured this guy, his job is an activation, and his job is to try and get in front of other ships to enable that Romodi thing. It also provides defense for the whole fleet. I'm like, do you want to shoot at the closest Architans? Well, Gozanti's in the way. If you shoot at the Gozanti, he's probably going to scatter. So is it, also when you're getting really close, you can park it right in front of an enemy ship, forcing them to waste like a really big attack on a Gozanti that might scatter, or if they've got all the accuracies and stuff like that, that's fine. It's going to be overkill because they'll roll that accuracy and maybe like 12 damage or something like that into a ship that's that is complete overkill for them. So it works. It works really well in a Romodi list. Plus, it's an extra activation. Now this is 5 ships so far. I'm at 332. We have more points. We can add extra Gozantis, but I'm going with a Raider. I don't run Raiders often, and I've always wanted to do more with Raiders. I have multiples of them, and I seldom run more than one. We're going to run a Raider here. Now, this Raider is going to do a lot of different things. This is going to be the one ship that is upgrade heavy, and it seems strange to have an upgrade heavy Raider. Out of all things, like, shouldn't I have more upgrades on the Star Destroyer? well, hear me out, because here's what we're going to do with this ship. Now, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give it Corvus. This is going to help make up for my lack of squadrons. It's going to give me a way to deploy early and be able to fake out that deployment, which is also just a really, really cool thing, because it kind of turns me into from a 6 deployment to a 7 deployment, which is really nice and should give me some decent deployment advantage against even some fleets that have squadrons. So that's one thing I'm looking forward to with that. But I want this ship. I'm going with the Raider 2 because I want to run Overload Pulse. Overload Pulse is one of those few criticals that is still really good and also doesn't exhaust. And it's also an Anakin Skywalker, effective card against Anakin Skywalker. Against a lot of things, not only Anakin. It's good against everything, but it's particularly effective against Anakin, which is very, very cool. Because if I know I'm going to exhaust all of your defense tokens, now all of a sudden you're going to have to be very, very careful about what you use for the rest of the round. And by the way, I've got high activation count, so it's possible to have lots and lots more Architons and the Star Destroyer firing at you with all those orange defense tokens. Anakin, do you really want to salvo now? Anakin, love it, love it, love it. So it works really well, but I want to maximize this a little bit. So some of the ways that I'm going to do this is I'm going to put disposable capacitors on the Raider. This is going to let me fire blue dice at long range. One of the problems with the Raider is that it has to be up close to do its job. Disposable capacitors, removes this weakness completely for, at least for the first engagement. And by the second engagement, you're probably closer anyway. So, and if it survives the second engagement. And then I'm going to put Gunnery Team on this one, really trying to max out. This was kind of like the holy trinity of Raider 2s being completely devastating, is that if I can get into a good position and I can concentrate fire and have Gunnery Team trigger, pop disposable capacitors, and hit 2 enemy ships and overload pulse on 2 enemy ships in the same turn, especially at long range before they close in, and hopefully they're also about to enter overlapping fields of fire onto all of my Architons, and then I can really kind of mess them up. And so this is kind of like the linchpin of the strategy to really make everything come together. It is a lot of extra upgrades. That's 20 extra points of upgrades I'm putting on that Raider, but it's a cool set of upgrades, and they work together really well. Corvus also helps me kind of position them in between, 2 ships in the best, ideally the best position. And also Raiders are pretty decent against squadrons too, so if I do have to face a heavy squadron build, the Raider might not be too bad against that as well. So it works in a number of different ways. Although I don't have any of those squadron-specific titles, it's still got a decent flak attack. I've got a lot of black dice against squadrons here, so not a whole lot of help against aces with that scatter, but hopefully enough flacking attacks, because again, this is 6 activations. I should be able to flak down squadrons as well. So that's the list. It's 400 points. As far as objectives, I'll talk about those really quick. We'll come down to our reds, and for assaults, we're going to go with most wanted in this case. Look, I'd love to get even more dice onto your enemy's biggest ship, and I can easily just make this Gazanti my objective ship. It's it's kind of a given. Anytime you have a naked Gazanti, most wanted is usually a really good option. I like that one. I like that one a lot. I'm going to go with fire lanes for the other one. I always like fire lanes in case I screw up with deployment advantage. It kind of sets the stage on where the battle's going to be fought, and it allows me, especially with things like Architons, to be able to kind of position in a way that I've got my dice on the tokens, and then you have to come to the fire lanes if you want, and it also really lets me leverage the quad battery turrets. I can start out at speed 1 and just stay at speed 1. You have to come into my web, and when you do, because you have to get these fire lanes tokens, otherwise I'll just sit there and collect hundreds of points. When you come into range, you're gonna get the bull and the horns. You're gonna get those extra blue dice on top of the overlapping fields of fire. So because you're gonna have to come in fast, otherwise I'll just keep you'll pay for it for every turn you're not in range. Now, the only mitigation against that is somebody who's really stacked the nav, or has you can move in really, really fast and slow down really, really quickly. But then at least I'm kind of forcing you to do that. And then for our blue, I'm going to go with a safe, fairly easier one. We're going to go with Solar Corona. I don't mind, denying you accuracies, especially against a Star Destroyer. And then I can maybe be a little more aggressive with the Simoon, because that one, you have a harder time accuracying that one brace. So that's the build, guys. That is the build. I feel like it does a lot of different things. I feel like it's effective against someone like Anakin, who's only got 2 probably salvo tokens. I've got way more shots on you than you've got salvos. You're going to run out, and yeah, you might take out one of my ships, but I can afford to lose 2, 3, 4, 5 ships. I can afford to lose that many. I can even take my Gazanti and be aggressive and attack with the Gazanti. I'm like, are you going to waste a salvo on the Gazanti? I don't think you will. And then that's fine, because then I can just park him there and double arc you and concentrate fire. And by the way, concentrate fire with a Gazanti that's got you double arc. That's 3 blue dice. It's pretty awesome. So I think it's a good deal. I think it's a good setup. And I think it looks really cool on the tabletop, and that's one of the things I'm really going for. All right, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Stand by for more on this fleet and on other similar fleets. If you like Star Wars Armada, you like Star Wars tabletop games, or Star Wars in general, definitely stick around, click that subscribe button. Big thanks to my patrons. You guys are absolutely amazing and help make this channel possible. Thank you for your continued support. May the Force be with you. Live long and prosper. Be excellent to each other. Party on, dudes. Have a great day, and always wash your socks.